All for joining us here. I am Kristen Kennedy, and I'm grateful that you guys are here in Lexington with us this afternoon. I do want to introduce our panelists before we start on our questions and our discussion. We have here experts in innovation, technology, and community development. Ami Dar is the founder and executive director for Idealist.org. It is one of the most popular nonprofit resources on the web. His site attracts millions of visitors a month, and it includes volunteer, job, and internship listings. Nick Such is with us in person today. He is the co-founder of Awesome Inc. His team connects people with software development, education, and employment. And the UK grad has been involved in several ventures, including indoor mapping software and multi-touch display technology. Colby Hall is also here in person with us today. He is the executive director of SOAR. SOAR stands for Shaping Our Appalachian Region. It is a nonprofit based on revitalizing Eastern Kentucky. He too is a UK grad and currently lives in Pikeville. And we have remote with us today Ann Weeby. She is the Vice President of Workforce Innovation at Salesforce. Her company is committed to building programs that help non-traditional job seekers gain skills and launch high-paying remote careers. And she is a military veteran who oversees her company's training of about 80,000 veterans and military spouses. So I do want to thank everyone for being here in person and in remote as well. I do plan on asking you each questions individually, but please feel free, remote, in person, to answer as well. I do want to start with Ami Dar today. Mr. Dar, your organization is well-versed on remote work in the nonprofit sector. How do you see remote work evolving in Appalachia?
Well, I think I can generalize a bit more. I think that I would say that I see remote work evolving, period. In other words, I think that, starting from a very sort of simple, selfish place, I haven't seen my team in person for 2 years. We shut down, we were in New York, there's 30 of us, a couple of people were remote, and we shut down the office 2 years ago. We opened the office a few months ago for someone who wants to come in. 4 or 5 people choose to come in, the rest are working from home, and 5 or 6 of them moved to North Carolina, to California. We just hired a couple of people in Colorado and Florida, which we had never done before the pandemic. And so that's just us. I mean, and through us, I think, you can see where this is all heading. You can see a situation where for us, we wanted to have our staff in one place or maybe 2 places, which of course limited, there are 8 million people in New York, and that's where we could hire from. It's not, it's not nothing, but it's not 300 million. Now we're open to hiring everywhere, anywhere. Our staff knows that they can move and live anywhere. And I think that for places like Appalachia, this is huge for the 2 reasons that the governor sort of alluded to. One is that people can move there and they can find a beautiful place to live and can no longer feel limited by where they're located. So I might as well live in a beautiful place where I want to live. And then the second side, of course, is that people who live there already can apply for jobs that would have been closed to them before. And so I think this is just the beginning of a process that is making me, feel very, very optimistic, especially for places like Appalachia, where, there's a whole interesting debate on whether, for example, economists would say that over the longer term, salaries, for example, would have to average out across the country, right? That would sort of make sense, that if the same job pays $100,000 in New York and it pays 50 or 60 in Kentucky, you would think that over time they would converge on 70, 75, 80 if people can work from anywhere. Well, that's very good news for the places that are currently making lower salaries, right? They can only go up. People in San Francisco or New York may not like the idea in the longer term, but for places like Kentucky and the rest of Appalachia, this can only be good news. So overall, I'm very optimistic. I think that there's a huge silver lining here in what happened, and this is not going away. I can't see this trend, going backwards. It may veer a little bit, but it's not going to go back.
And I do want to talk about some of those companies that are based here in Kentucky. Mr. Such, Awesome Inc., right here in Lexington. Talk with me a little bit about how you guys are advancing remote work opportunities.
Certainly. So Awesome Inc. exists to help people pursue their definition of awesome. And what that actually looks like is we work with entrepreneurs, mostly founders of high-tech startups, and then the people who work for them. So they need a workforce as well. So software developers, people in that technology ecosystem. I think one of the biggest things that we've had an opportunity to do is to raise awareness and to build a community of these people who are starting companies and people who are working remotely in those tech jobs. There already are a lot of people in Kentucky working remotely. We just don't really know about them. We don't hear about them a whole lot. So I think that's one of the big challenges that we have is raising that awareness. One of the really interesting things that 2 years of COVID brought to us is remote has always been an option for more experienced people. Once you spend a couple of years in the office, the team trusts you, they'll trust you to work remotely, get your job done. Entry-level remote is a very new thing, and I think a huge opportunity for Kentuckians. For the folks who come through our web developer bootcamp, our training program, we've really seen a really big difference in that in the last 2 years of entry-level remote jobs. And looking at things like software development, the Salesforce ecosystem, while talent is evenly distributed, opportunity is not. And I think that's one of the big things that we're trying to bring to Kentucky is that opportunity.
Well, and SOAR is huge when it comes to trying to create opportunity for areas that historically haven't had a lot of opportunity. What is SOAR doing to make sure that Appalachia's economy can kind of thrive in this remote work environment?
Yeah, I think the point that Gail brought up about the history of Appalachia and the ARC when it was formed in the 50s and 60s, it's a lot of those same issues that kind of rear their ugly heads today. But I really believe, obviously, with broadband, if we can get broadband piece from an accessibility and affordability and adaptability and how to use it right, it makes those things that work against us less important. I mean, to your point, Nick, 25 million new digital jobs are expected to be created in the United States by 2025. Those are jobs with median wages of $80,000, right? Yeah, I think to myself, what if 0.1% of those found their way to Eastern Kentucky and some of the most economically distressed communities across the country? It's a huge game changer. So I'll say, Kristen, looking at the intersection of remote work and economic development, which I think is super, super important. There's some other things that SOAR does from helping small businesses to become more technology enabled in how they sell their products. But I think remote work acquisition strategies have to be integrated with how we think about regional economic development. And it's pretty simple. It's one, we make it a priority. The need is so great in our region, it's sometimes hard you want to say yes to everything. I do too. But we're limited with resources and time. It needs to be at the top of the list. The second thing, right, is working with employers like Salesforce, like Rubicon, like Visa, anybody else that has one open remote job to 5,000, I don't care. Anybody that can put somebody in Eastern Kentucky to work, get them in the room with our training providers in our post-secondary institutions, and let's find a way to make it work. And then the third thing is we just have to hustle it, right? As a place-based organization that works with local institutions, we can't wait for somebody to come in and do this for us. It takes us going down and beating that door down and forcing it to happen because we have an opportunity here. And so we have to reach out and grab it by the horns.
Ms. Weeby, how is Salesforce working to help the non-traditional job seeker find these remote jobs?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I wish I was there in person to continue this conversation. This is one of my favorite topics. I mean, Salesforce is creating jobs. It's the Salesforce economy is predicted to generate 9.3 million jobs by 2026. And we know that in order for us to be successful as a business, for our customers to be successful, we need lots of people. And we also need those people to represent the communities of our customers and the businesses and the knowledge of our customer base. And so we, it's my privilege to work at the intersection of these emerging new technologies, some of them that, are so new they're not being taught anywhere, and workforce development. And so the first thing we did is we offered our training for free. And so we put out information about our products on an incredibly innovative website called Trailhead. And that's where anyone can learn. And that's really democratized access to our products and our knowledge. And we find, just whether people are already using the technology, they can continue to upskill, and brand new people can be successful too. The second thing, and especially for non-traditional populations, people who don't have social capital to access tech or don't really know, these jobs, or maybe didn't have a degree, or they're really starting fresh, is training has to lead to jobs. And so, for example, what we've done in the military veteran space is we have industry certifications that people can get for free. So we take away that cost to get that credential. People have incredibly impressive, careers doing different things in the military sometimes, but it's that industry credential that can really land that job. And so it's a value add to already great experience someone has. And this is across the board, whether it's customer service or someone who's been at home for a long time. If you can really explain your work and add that industry credential, you can access these careers. So we started doing paid work experience and finding, like Colby said, those first jobs. The first job experience is remote. And I'll echo what Ami said. It's just been the silver lining of COVID that people before we would have never been able to get people work experience from home, and now we can. And so we have 2 different fellowships running right now that we're really excited about, partnering with our customers and our partners and nonprofit organizations to see how quickly someone can skill up, get the right skills, and then land that full-time job. So it's really promising.
We definitely have seen that with the pandemic. I mean, there's so many more people that are now working from home and continue to. How do each of your organizations plan to capitalize on that remote work that we are seeing happen right now?
I guess I'll start. I just think historically, somebody mentioned this before, what's our number one collective enemy in Eastern Kentucky is population loss. Nothing works without people. And for the longest time, but especially now, after the collapse of the coal industry, which has been the one industry that's kind of sustained this region, there has been a huge employment gap. Remote work changes that paradigm. Remote work gives us the opportunity to offer local opportunities that, while they may not be there physically, they're still there. So when we think about our own population, there's a big difference in feeling like you have to leave and wanting to leave. You can't force anybody to stay. But with remote work, if we can promote those types of opportunities and we can train our people to have those basic skill sets going through trailheads to be able to get that job, that helps us be more competitive with saying, hey, you can stay here if you want to, you can have a great paying job, you can progress personally, professionally, and that just helps us keep the people in Eastern Kentucky. And with people, that's what we need most. So we really look at it as a really, really important lever to play when it comes to reversing out migration.
Any other panelists want to discuss that? Okay. I would like you each to talk about the future of remote work. Do you predict that more industries are going to be relying on this remote workforce? And if that's the case, Mr. Dar, I'm going to start with you. How can we help individuals get into this workforce that is becoming more remote?
Yeah, I'll try to focus on the side, I guess, of this that I'm most concerned about. So what I've seen in the last couple of years is that if you look at the workforce of a company or a business, and you look at the younger folk and the older people know their jobs, they have families, and they tend to commute longer distances. So for them, on pretty much all counts, the remote work, I think, has been sort of wonderful. I get to be at home with my kids. I don't have to commute. I already have friends. I'm married maybe. And I know my job. I'm not trying to apprentice into it. If you're a young person, let's take the most extreme person. You're a young person that basically graduated college now, and you're into your first job. You want to go get your first job. It used to be that your first job, very honestly, was the first place in life where you could see how adults who are not your parents treat each other. Like, how does this whole thing work, right? And how do you were told to not create problems and to sort of solve problems at work, to try to impress your colleagues. Maybe you picked the wrong profession, the wrong job, you can look across the office and say, ooh, that looks like a great job. I want to do that when I grow up. I'm concerned that much of that is lost. I'm concerned about young people who will not be exposed to the sort of the norms of a workplace, that lose the ability to impress their boss's boss. You know, their manager is going to go to her manager to ask for a raise for you. How do you even remind your manager's manager that you exist when she never sees you, right? So I think that for younger people, this is a huge challenge. And I don't have a solution. I'm just trying to say that we need to think of them, because I think that for mature people in their careers, this is really not a big problem. I think that for young people coming in, 22, 24, 25-year-olds, this is a huge problem. And so we have to find a way of more hybrid work, more retreats, more opportunities to maybe meet locally with people that work in other companies, but at least we can work together, not to be alone at home. That doesn't strike me as a great solution.
Ms. Weeby, do you work with younger individuals, getting them into the workforce?
Yeah, certainly. And, we focus on top talent, we focus on non-traditional talent, we focus on employing them both at Salesforce and in our ecosystem with our customers and partners. And now, we're calling it success from anywhere at Salesforce, where you can work from anywhere. And it means as a hiring manager and as a company, we have access to new talent that when we were only hiring in hubs in major cities, we didn't have access to before. And so that's really exciting. But people need to be able to grow their careers, and they often do that through relationships. And so we're thinking a lot about how do people convene? How do they do that digitally? And so we talk about this concept of a digital HQ and a place to meet your teams and meet other employees and be able to see new opportunities. And so for us, we're using Slack to do that. There are lots of different tools that companies can utilize, but people need to connect. They need to find that community. They need to be able to grow their careers at home. And so there's a lot of focus and excitement and innovation happening there.
Mr. Such, I'm going to let you have the last word here.
Yeah.
What do you all do to foster that type of relationship that's kind of difficult when you're doing remote work?
It's very challenging. I think a couple of the biggest things are internship and apprenticeship opportunities. So how do you go through a structured program where you're going to get to understand the business, meet the management team? They're going to get to know you. I think that's a really big thing with remote work. It's not just who you know, but who knows you, who knows what you can do. I think a big piece of it is partnerships. So a lot of the work that we do, we work with the Kentucky innovation hubs all around the state, like SOAR. We work with the University of Kentucky. And I think those partnerships are a really big piece. One of the big things that we're working on now, though, is really getting employers involved in that education and training. I think that's something that may have switched, with remote work, is a bigger employer involvement. I think Salesforce is doing a great job with this for their customers and partners. And I expect to see more of that, and that's something that we're working on as well.
All right. Well, I want to thank each of our panelists for being part of this experience, for sharing your expertise, whether it was in person or remotely. Thank you for working from home for us today, for helping us out with this panel. And I want to thank you all for being with us as well. Hope you have a good afternoon.